The Salazar Files. The video starts with a graphic with bright, bold letters that drip with blood. It reads Murdercast. Beneath the main title is a smaller font, The Salazar Files. A handsome young man with TV anchor hair wearing a jean jacket and an armband that reads Journalist stands in view. He smiles, checks behind him. The camera shifts slightly, revealing a house that looks like it comes with eternally grey skies. The kind of house that exists somewhere between Gothic and dilapidated. Greetings, fans of justice. I'm Adrian Sarkov, and this is Murdercast. Today we're exploring another link in the chain of the Salazar murders. Behind us, in a forgotten corner of the 11th Ward, just outside the Enochian district, is the old Salazar house. For my long-time Murdercast fans, you'll remember that Salazar lived in upstate New York, where he ritually murdered dozens of unsuspecting tourists and the occasional annoying neighbor before he disappeared once I uncovered his gruesome schemes. But what you didn't know until now is that he also had a home here in the city of sorcery. That's right. I know I have many fans that live in Invictus, but don't worry, I don't believe Luscious Salazar has lived at this location for decades, but in the quest to track him down, I want to explore every possible avenue. And as it goes for our typical Murdercast episode, the weather has decided to cooperate or not cooperate, depending on your sense of ambience. The camera pans left at first, revealing a street filled with old houses with sagging roofs and dead leaf-choked yards. The cracked street only has 2 cars on it, and both look like they haven't run in years. In the backdrop, the center of the city is dominated by a single towering building that sticks into the dark clouds of the approaching storm. The building known as the Spire is twice as tall as the enormous skyrises that cluster around it. Lightning threads through the bruise-purple clouds, the rumble of thunder following. What did I tell you? If I'd been in Coterie, rather than Justicars, my viewers might accuse me of controlling the weather as often as this happens during our investigations. But a spooky night isn't going to dissuade me from finding the truth, and hopefully eventually our serial killer, Luscious Salazar. The camera follows Adrian through the gate, right as the winds pick up. His hair is blown sideways and an old plastic bag tumbles past. The camera pans up to the old house, which has a tall steeple at the center. As it focuses onto the weather vane, the screen glitches, and the sky behind the Salazar mansion appears as a negative before shifting back to normal. Oh, that was a good one. The lightning hit something in the 13th Ward. Come on. Let's check out the place. Boy, this porch has seen better days. Careful, Janine, half the boards are cracked. I'd hate to have my trusty camerawoman twist her ankle before we explored a single inch. The front door has a stained glass window. The picture is a house that looks similar to the mansion, except it exists under a crimson sky. You getting this? Wow. Luscious really goes for the creepy vibe. Remember that collection of stuffed squirrels at his New York home? He didn't even try to hide the stitchings. I don't know if I've ever seen one like this. Usually you get flowers or trees or interesting patterns. Oh, and look at this, the border almost looks like it has runes or something like them, but they're nothing I've seen before. Not infernal or any of the usual runic structures. Come on, let's check out the interior. If this is the entrance, I can't wait to see the rest of the house. The foyer is dark until camera lights switch on, revealing a grand staircase and other passages heading into the lower level. Adrian steps into view as he cranes his neck. Dust motes float in the air. A rumble from the sky echoes through the house, bringing a faint smile to his lips. I'm getting goosebumps already. This is exciting. Are you excited, Janine? The camera moves from side to side. Adrian laughs and winks. As he turns, a faint glowing from the ceiling has him raising his arm. Did you get that? The lights briefly lit. An ornate chandelier hangs above Adrian. The crystals and bulbs are dull. When I found out about this place, I did some checking around before we came here. The locals have been reporting the lights coming on at strange times of the night, or other random noises. They think the mansion is haunted. The interesting thing is that they don't know who the owner is. When Salazar lived in the city, he did so under a fake name. Byron Taliesin. Probably named for the Welsh shaman from the 1600s, who attended many courts of the time as a poet. After reviewing the diaries he left at his cabin in the Finger Lakes, we know that Salazar had a fetish for storytellers and bards, believing their tales were what helped make some people immortal, not in idea but in practice. It's why I think that he allowed himself to be discovered after decades of murder, because he wanted his deeds known to further his quest for long life. Of course we know he's a mage with no known connection to the halls, but since he hasn't succumbed to phase madness, it means he has a patron outside there. A thump in the background stops Adrian, who checks over his shoulder and then hurries down a hallway. The camera bobs as it follows. He stops at a set of grand doors. The exteriors have been carved with scenes of medieval gaiety. He runs his fingertips across the smooth wood as he glances down the hallway, clearly looking for the source of the noise. Absolutely gorgeous. As I was saying, the neighbors have been seeing lights and hearing things. When I checked with the utilities, it seems that about 30 years ago, a large account was set up with the district, which keeps the lights on, so to say, and provides a modest stipend to officials of the district, which keeps them asking too many questions. Adrian checks around him, looking at the floor and then the walls. He returns to the door. Have you noticed? I can't believe I didn't see it right away, but this place is so amazing, I didn't recognize it at first. Look down there. The camera pans to the wood floor. When it comes back to Adrian, he's grinning. Did you see it? No dust. I haven't seen a speck. Now there are many reasonable explanations. There are many enchantments that could provide this level of cleanliness to a building like this, but for them to exist after all this time, would signal Salazar or someone he knows was a powerful mage. Let me see if I can confirm this theory. He intertwines his fingers, extending them outward as his knuckles crack. He shakes them out as he stares at the carved door like a kid waiting for his turn to open a present. His easy manner disappears as he focuses, bringing his hands front and center like a conductor and with precise movements articulating his fingers. A low muttering exits his lips, both melodic and mesmerizing. When he completes the spell, the entire backdrop of wall and door flashes briefly with a light green glow. I knew it. Adrian spins on the camera, cocking a gleeful smile. He jabs his thumb over his shoulder. As I suspected, the entire house is protected with a cleanliness enchantment. Powerful stuff to have lasted this long. The little glow we saw earlier is a different story, but that could be explained by decaying wires. Maybe Salazar turned all those squirrels into stuffies because he hated what they did to his electrical cords. The camera quivers as the holder laughs. Adrian heads deeper into the house. I didn't figure the house would prove so interesting out of the gate, and remember, we still haven't figured out where that noise came from. We'll come back to that door in a minute, but I thought I heard something back here near where I think the kitchen is located. Adrian pushes through a swinging door which the camera hits on its way through. His dumbfounded expression registers shock, slowly fading to concern. The sideways glance to the camera is followed by a pan towards the kitchen, which looks like the interior of a butcher shop from the 1800s, with thick wooden timbers and metal hooks for hanging meat. Adrian's forced swallow is visible as he approaches the brass-lined sink. He waves the camera over, which reveals the interior is coated with something dark. Adrian takes out a pocket knife, unfolds it, and uses the blade to scrape off the coating. He gives it a tentative sniff. It's blood. The camera shifts suddenly, wildly, then returns to Adrian's wide-eyed stare. He leans to the side. I don't know. I heard it too. He offers a brave smile. Well, isn't this getting interesting? I wasn't expecting this kitchen. It's like the house was built around an older settlement. He holds up the knife with the flakes on the tip. If my memory of the history of the Enochian district is correct, it was one of the earliest locations where students gathered for the initial incarnation of the halls. Maybe this house was once a different building, a butcher shop or something similar, and Salazar built his home atop it. But if that were true, something would have showed up on the historical records. Certainly, the Historical Society would have had it registered. Curious indeed. But first we need to know what kind of blood it is. Adrian sets the knife on the wooden counter. The heavy center table looks thick enough to withstand multiple axe blows. A rumble of thunder makes the hooks swing like hangman ropes. He poses with the hooks and shoots the camera a winning smile. Then he reaches into an inner pocket of his jean jacket, producing a small vial. Using an eyedropper, he squeezes a few drops of a pale orange liquid on the dried material on the knife. It immediately sizzles, followed by a puff of cobalt blue smoke. Long-time viewers will know the blue smoke means it's not human blood. But it is fresh. Recent by a few days at the least, which means the house is either occupied or was recently. I know I said that Salazar isn't on the premises, but maybe I was wrong about that. Nothing in the Finger Lake notes mentioned this place, and I was under the assumption that he would leave a trail to his next hunting location. It makes me wonder if I was wrong about his modus operandi. Adrian looks back towards the kitchen door. The camera follows his gaze but then comes back to him. He furrows his brow pensively. Should we return to the interesting door in the hallway? I think so. The carved door upon arrival is shifted open. Adrian checks back to the camera. I don't think we need to review the tape to know this isn't how we left it. He pulls back the sleeves of his jean jacket, revealing a jade and onyx bracelet. Adrian runs his fingers over the gemstones until they glow lightly. If we're dealing with something from the veil, this will help. Otherwise, it's as useless as a knife in a gunfight. Adrian pulls back the door, briefly obscuring him, until the camera shifts around to show his back as he enters the room. He cranes his head in all directions, suggesting the space is much larger than would appear from the outside. Check it out. I can see Salazar's squirrel taxidermy in the Finger Lakes wasn't his first foray into the science of preservation. The room is filled with various creatures, normal and supernatural alike, either displayed on wooden platforms or hanging from chains that connected to thick timbers. The camera spotlights a powerful humanoid creature with black leathery wings and the face of an angry bat. Adrian steps onto the wooden platform. The stuffed creature is a head taller than him. He digs his fingers into its furry chest muscles. Looks, you can see the stitchings, but not as obvious as his squirrels. Strange. His head jerks back to the camera. Oh yes, I failed to explain what this is. It's a camazotz or death bat. I visited the Portland Zoo years ago and saw one. That's not the only thing in here. Look, over there is an elongated hellcat, and here are some rather large spiders that I don't have the knowledge to identify. There are no plaques, which suggests he wasn't interested in others seeing the taxidermy. They were for his own private collection. Let's continue through the rest of the house. He leaves by a door at the back of the den, revealing a long hallway. At the end, metal hooks from the kitchen can be seen through an open door. Adrian holds up his hand and points in the perpendicular. He turns and runs his fingers along the frame. I'm a bit confused. This hallway shouldn't be heading in this direction. This hallway and the one on the other side are running parallel, but this one is headed back into the kitchen. Maybe it's a second, nearly identical kitchen. Mysteries abound. The kitchen looks exactly the same. Adrian checks the sink and points to scrape in the dried blood. He looks behind him again, expecting something. He shakes his head. Let's head to the other side of the house. We might start to piece things together. Past the staircase, a short hallway reveals 3 doors on the left side and 3 portrait paintings on the right. Adrian stops at the first painting. An old man in a black jacket and frilly white collar staring back. Do you see it? Either that's an ancestor of Salazar, or he's already lived much longer than we've previously known about. This changes a lot. I think this style is Dutch. Maybe Baroque. But I'm no art expert. I wonder if the other paintings show similar figures. The camera pans back to the hallway, which now shows 6 doors and 6 paintings ending at an open door. Adrian looks into the camera, shaking his head. I think we've confirmed this house has some sort of temporal or physical manifestation. The hallway was half its size moments ago and now it's twice the length. The deeper we dive into the Salazar house, the more questions I have about our serial killer. Lightning flashes, sending light into the room at the end of the hall, backlighting a humanoid figure with crimson eyes. The camera tilts wildly as Janine shouts and points. Adrian sees the figure and reaches into an inner pocket. A ghostly sword made of mist appears in his hand as he runs after the person. A second flash of lightning reveals an empty room, but Adrian continues. The camera flips, revealing a woman with milk-pale skin and curly blonde hair. I do not like this. The camera returns to its original position on her shoulder, and the hallway reveals itself as the first version with only 3 doors. A shout from upstairs followed by crashing furniture and an inhuman roar have the camera bobbing back towards the entrance. A hand reaches out to grab the door handle, but it resists efforts of escape. The noises of battle intensify on the 2nd floor. The camera spins around, pointing up the wide staircase. The shadows from the light make the wooden cherubs at the end of the railings appear to be screaming. Janine's breathing can be heard above the noise. A dark shadow shoots past the light, followed by a slam and rattle as Janine backed into the door. Get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. A roar that makes the entire house shake is followed by quiet mumbling. When a figure appears at the top of the stairs, Janine lets out a little squeak of fright. Adrian stands with his ghostly sword in his hand, looking stunned. His jean jacket is torn at 3 separate areas. He stares into the darkness of the 2nd floor and shakes his head, before running down to the front door. It's locked. The camera shifts to the side, showing Adrian grab the door handle. It doesn't budge for him. He throws his shoulder into it, rattling the wooden glass. A thunderous roar from somewhere on the bottom floor has Adrian putting his hand to his forehead. He looks at his ghostly sword and then makes it disappear, before pulling a paint marker out of his back pocket. He traces the runes on the stained glass. His hand is shaking. Sometimes you can interfere with runes by writing over them with slightly different patterns, deflecting the energy that's keeping the enchantment alive. I hope this works. His earnest nod is threaded with fear. When he finishes, he steps back and kicks the door near the handle. The unsuccessful rattle has him closing his eyes briefly before stepping back again. The second kick bursts the door open, followed by the camera hastily bobbing down the sidewalk and out the wrought iron gate to the cracked, dark street. Lightning pulses through the clouds above. Adrian's heaving as he stares back at the mansion. He looks like he's trying to process what he saw on the 2nd floor. He gathers himself and faces the camera with sweat beaded on his brow. I know your first question is going to be, what did I see when I chased that creature, person, I don't know what, onto the 2nd floor? The first thing is that I never went up any steps. And second, I can't quite describe it. It seemed both humanoid and formless at the same time, as if it were projecting what it wanted me to see in my head. Adrian's chin dips towards his jacket. He tugs on the rips. They look shredded. This happened right before I reached the stairs. I ran through a room filled with old farm implements like scythes and tractor blades. A flash of light from inside the mansion has the camera backing away. Can we go to the car? Adrian nods. Might be prudent. They jog to a dark green truck a block up. As they reach the interior, the sky releases a downpour. Adrian takes the driver's seat. He locks the doors as soon as he settles himself. The windows fog up. I can't say I've ever had a more disturbing experience. Even more than when I found his trove of trophy victims. What I can say is I'm fairly certain that was not luscious Salazar, and whatever was in the house had made its home there because of something about the location. I know that sounds strange to say that, But in all my interviews with the families of victims or his neighbors, no one gave any indication that he was a literal monster with psychic powers. It might be this creature was drawn to the house due to Salazar's history. I don't know. Adrian turns the key, starting the motor and energizing the forward lights. The humanoid figure with crimson eyes is standing 50 feet ahead. Adrian slams the gear into reverse and backs up down the street as the creature pursues them. He turns the wheel hard, sliding them in a circle until they're facing the opposite way. Then he shifts the gear into drive. The camera spins around in time to see crimson eyes right behind the bed of the truck, and then disappear into the rainstorm. Adrian drives recklessly through the streets until he composes himself. He drives until they're headed out of the city, and a few miles later he spots a diner lit up with white lights. He pulls into a parking spot, turns off the truck, and faces the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, fans of justice, this is Adrian Sarkov of Murdercast, the Salazar Files. I know I have a lot of fans who like to visit the locations of the Murdercast as a little sightseeing tour, and in the past, as long as you were obeying laws and not trespassing, I never thought anything about it. Tonight's locale is different. That house is not a normal house. It's a crooked house. Something is very wrong. I say this with your safety in mind. Do not go into the house. Don't even drive by it. Stay far away. Let me repeat myself. Do not go into that house. Adrian sighs heavily and offers the camera a weary smile. Now I think we're going to head into this diner and have ourselves a nice cup of coffee and some pancakes. Nothing takes the edge off like entirely too much maple syrup. The camera shifts to the side as it's laid down between them. As a hand reaches over to power it off, Janine's voice can be heard over the steady rain. What was that? This has been the Salazar Files by Thomas K. Carpenter.